The garden you see when you open the back door in the morning is not the garden that existed 6 hours before. It looks the same. The feeder is still there. The hedge is still there. The nest box is closed and quiet. But something happened in the hours between. Something you were asleep for. And the birds know exactly what it was, because some of them were awake for it. If your garden has felt quieter lately, if the birds that used to arrive at first light have started coming later, or not at all, there is almost certainly a reason. It happened between midnight and dawn, and you had no idea it was happening. Welcome to Garden Bird Secrets. If you're new here, subscribe, because what you're about to learn will change every morning you spend in your garden. In this video, I want to walk you through 5 things that are happening in your garden after dark. And one of them is almost certainly the reason your birds have changed their behavior. Stay until the end, because the final point is the one most garden owners never connect to what they're seeing in daylight. Your garden does not belong only to you. After dark, it belongs to something else entirely. And the birds already know this. Every morning when they arrive, or don't arrive, they are reacting to what took place in the hours you weren't watching. There is a name for what they are reacting to. Ecologists call it the landscape of fear. It refers to the way prey animals, birds in your garden, do not simply respond to predators when they see them. They respond to the memory of where predators have been. Every space in your garden carries a risk rating, updated continuously based on what has happened there. If a predator moved through a particular patch of ground at 3 in the morning, the birds that find that patch at first light will sense it. In the scent, in the disturbed soil, in the absence of the small insects that fled, and they will adjust their behavior accordingly. Research published through the Wildlife Conservation Society and supported by field studies across urban and suburban habitats in the United Kingdom has documented this effect precisely. Birds do not simply avoid the predator. They avoid the area the predator occupied, sometimes for hours, sometimes for the entire following day. The landscape of fear is not a metaphor. It is a measurable shift in foraging patterns, singing behavior, and proximity tolerance that researchers can map and quantify. In your garden, this means the following. If you have noticed your birds feeding less confidently, hovering at the edge of the feeder, arriving and departing quickly, spending less time on the ground, you may be seeing the morning after effect of something that passed through your garden several hours before first light. They are not nervous without reason. They are responding to evidence that you have not yet seen. The garden did not feel safe last night. They remember that. But memory of danger is only useful if there was time to react in the first place. Every species of bird has what researchers call a flight initiation distance, the gap between itself and an approaching threat at which it will choose to fly rather than hold its ground. For a human walking slowly across a lawn, most garden birds will hold until you are 3 to 4 meters away. Some will come closer. They have assessed you. They know your routine. But the cat moves differently. A cat does not approach in a straight line. It does not make noise. It uses cover. The shadow of the hedge, the gap behind the compost bin, the low run along the base of the fence, in a way that collapses the flight initiation distance before the bird has had time to calculate its risk. Studies by the Mammal Society, drawing on survey data from across the United Kingdom, have estimated that domestic and feral cats account for approximately 55 million bird deaths in this country every single year. The peak window for this predation is not the middle of the afternoon. It is the hours around dawn, when cats are returning from their night range and birds are beginning to move, less alert, still warming up their threat detection systems. The birds that disappear from your garden are rarely taken in plain sight. They are taken in the places you cannot see, at the times you are not watching, in encounters that last less than a second. In your garden, this means that the empty space where your birds used to forage at 6:30 in the morning may not be empty by chance. Something moved through that space before you were awake, and the birds that survived have already mapped it and filed it as dangerous. You cannot see what happened, but they can still smell it. There is another way the night leaves its mark on your garden, one that has nothing to do with what moves through it and everything to do with the light above it. Almost every garden bird in the United Kingdom is silent after dark. Almost every one. There is one exception, and if you have ever been awake at midnight and heard it, you will know immediately what it is. The robin, singing alone in the dark from somewhere in the hedge or the apple tree, in conditions that no other garden bird will tolerate. Most people assume this is beautiful. A few assume it means something is wrong. The British Trust for Ornithology has documented and studied nocturnal robin singing extensively. The primary driver, in the vast majority of cases, is artificial light. Robins have photoreceptors that are extraordinarily sensitive to low-level illumination. The glow of a street lamp, the light spilling from an upstairs window, the ambient orange wash that sits over most British towns and suburbs after dark. That light triggers the robin's diurnal systems. It sings because, as far as its biology is concerned, it is morning. This is not harmful to the robin in the short term, but it is a signal worth understanding. Stay with me, because this next part changes everything. The robin singing at midnight in your garden is not singing out of distress, but it is telling you something about the light environment your garden exists in after you go to sleep. That same ambient light that activates the robin's song also disrupts the sleep patterns of other garden birds, reducing their reaction time at dawn, impairing the threat detection systems that keep them alive at the most dangerous hour of the day. In your garden, this means the glow coming from your neighbor's security light, or from the road, or even from your own kitchen, may be doing quiet damage to the alertness of every bird that roosts in your hedgerow. The robin stays awake. The others wake up slower than they should. That difference costs some of them their lives. The same light that keeps the robin singing through the night creates one more hazard, one that arrives at the exact moment the sun does. Most garden owners know about window collisions at midday. Strong overhead light, high bird activity, reflections of sky and trees in glass. What the British Trust for Ornithology's collision monitoring data shows is that there is a second peak, smaller but significant. The half-hour window immediately after first light, when artificial lighting inside the house is still on and the sky outside is beginning to brighten. At that precise moment, the window becomes a mirror from the inside and a reflection from the outside simultaneously. The bird approaching sees not glass, but a continuation of the garden, the hedge, the sky, the tree it came from, rendered perfectly in the window's surface. It does not understand what it is flying into until the impact. Research published in partnership with the RSPB has estimated that window collisions account for approximately 100 million bird deaths globally each year. In the United Kingdom, the figure sits in the millions annually, making it one of the most significant human-linked causes of garden bird mortality and one of the most preventable. In your garden, this means the moment when your lights are still on and the dawn is beginning outside is a window of genuine risk, specifically for the birds that are moving early, the ones with the highest alertness and the strongest instinct to be first to the feeder. The bravest birds, in other words, the ones you most want to see. A simple UV reflective film applied to the outside surface of your windows will not affect your view from inside, but it will make the glass visible to a bird at 20 meters. It will change everything for the birds that would otherwise not survive until breakfast. 4 dangers. The territory that carries the memory of last night. The predator that moved through it before you were awake. The light that blunted your bird's instincts before dawn. And the glass that waited for the bravest ones when the morning finally came. None of them are beyond your reach. These are not forces of nature that happen to your garden. They are things happening in a space that belongs to you, and there are specific, practical changes you can make that researchers have documented as effective. The RSPB and the Mammal Society both recommend keeping cats indoors between the hours of dusk and 2 hours after dawn, the window that captures the majority of the predation risk. A bell collar, independently tested in field conditions, reduces successful strikes by approximately 50%. Prickle strips along the top of fences where cats habitually sit and watch reduce the time cats spend in a position of predatory advantage in your garden. None of these require you to dislike cats. They simply require you to understand what is happening in your garden while you sleep. On the lighting front, a motion-activated rather than permanently on security light reduces the ambient disruption to roosting birds by the large majority. Closing curtains in lit rooms before midnight costs nothing and interrupts the light pollution reaching your hedgerow. These are small things, but to the birds that roost in your garden tonight, they are the difference between a safe space and a dangerous one. You cannot be in your garden between midnight and dawn, but you can shape what that garden is tonight before you go to sleep. But before the practical matters step back for a moment, there is something underneath all of this that deserves to be said plainly. Your garden birds do not stay because it is convenient. They are not passing through. The magpie on your fence has a detailed knowledge of your property, its layout, its rhythms, its risk levels, that it has built over months or years. The birds that come to your feeder have made a decision about you and about your garden specifically. They have weighed your space against others and chosen this one. When a bird stops coming, when the feeder is visited less, when the morning feels emptier than it used to, it is easy to assume the birds have simply moved on, that they were never really yours, that the garden was just a convenient stop on a longer route. That is almost never the reason. The birds that are gone from your garden did not leave because they wanted to. Something happened. In the night, in the pre-dawn, in a moment you were not awake to see, and they did not survive it. Or they survived, but the garden no longer feels safe enough to return to. The absence you notice in the morning has a cause. And understanding that cause is the first step toward making sure it does not happen again. If you've ever stood in your garden and felt genuinely watched, you were not imagining it. And if you've ever stood in your garden and felt the absence of something that used to be there, that feeling is accurate too. The birds knew your garden, some of them still do. Tell me in the comments, have you noticed your garden feeling different in the morning lately? A change in which birds come, or when, or how confidently they move? I read every single one. These are the stories I carry with me longest. I'll see you in the garden.